Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is, can a woman teach a man to be one? Well, I've got an email here from a woman who's married, and they've been together for many years, and she's starting to get to the point where she realizes her husband just doesn't have the same goals, have the same values, and is not making the effort that's going to be, at least at this point, since she wrote her email, he's not currently making the effort that she wants to see in order for her to want to stick around. So I got a quote that I wrote in this topic, and I'm going to go through her email. And the quote says, "You can only help people who are ready, willing, able, and open to being helped. Everyone must have emotionally compelling reasons to get up and do what they do every day, or they simply won't make the required effort consistently. People are naturally and innately motivated to avoid pain and to move towards what potentially will bring them pleasure. You can't live other people's lives for them. It's not your fault that others do not share or have the same zest for living that you do. Live your truth and love others as they are and where they are, even if they don't have the same high standards as you do." Let's go through her email. "Dear Corey, I found your work last April 2017. My name is Jessica. I am from Ecuador, but have lived in the USA since 2003. I'm currently 41 years old, married to a 52-year-old man. He's from the US. And we have 14 years of marriage and 2 children. Our marriage was perfect, or at least I thought that, until our 10th anniversary. Then suddenly, like someone took a blindfold off my eyes, I noticed every flaw in my marriage." Well, when people first get together and they fall in love, we all tend to focus on what we love about the other person. But the longer we're together, we tend to focus on the things that we don't like. And the reality is if you look at the statistics, people sometimes, you either grow together with somebody or you grow apart. I think I saw a stat, I think I might have talked about this in an earlier video, that was saying something like, was it 58% of people 35 and under are not married and living single. I was like, God, that's a really fucking high number. I mean, society as a whole is changing, and the way people go about relationships and marriage is also changing, especially with us living longer lives. We just have the ability to have more relationships than when you look back a couple hundred years ago, and the average person only lived to be 30 to 40 years old. I mean, it's like if you were lucky to make it to an adult, and then you have kids in your 20s, hopefully you were able to watch your kids grow up before you died and took your dirt nap. Nowadays, we're literally living for many, many more decades. And then if you follow any of the DNA nanobot technology or the DNA editing technology, it's rapidly approaching where we're getting to the point where we're going to be able to prolong human life potentially, indefinitely, obviously, as long as you don't go splat. I mean, can you imagine? You're able to live for a couple hundred years. Do you really want to be with the same person your whole life? Life is fun. I mean, one of our core needs as human beings is variety. And quite frankly, I like variety. If I look back, I've been a serial monogamist my whole life, and that's just my truth. That's what works for me. It might not work for you or anybody else listening to it, but that's what makes me happy. You got to do what makes you happy and live your truth and find other like-minded people who share the same kind of truth, goals, and values. She says, "I felt like I had no freedom. I could not make decisions, and since he makes most part of the money, I felt he was totally in control of me. As a form of escape, I started working out much more than usual, and my husband got very jealous also. I believe due to the fact that I got in the best shape of my life, and I changed for complete my diet." Yeah, I mean, if you think about that, people typically tend to work out and take better care of themselves when they're single, and when they settle down, they get married, and they have kids, those things just slowly fall by the wayside, along with your hobbies and your interests and often a lot of your friends. And then a decade or two later, you're looking in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself or your life or who you are anymore because you've compromise your values, your principles, and your goals so much that you kind of lose yourself in your relationship. I was feeling very sexy and strong. It was empowering what I was experimenting at the time. I also took a new part-time job as a Spanish teacher, and I started to go to school to achieve my master's in education. I used to get up at 4 a.m. every day, and I made no excuses and got the best grades in school, as well as working out like crazy, and the change was notorious. Men started to hit on me a lot. It was like being in my 20s again. I think my husband felt this vibe, and he got really grumpy. Remember, no one will ever do or say anything to you that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment. If you're happy, if you're loving your life, if you love yourself and you're taking good care of your body, and you're around other people who are not doing that, it's going to make anybody feel a little more uncomfortable, and then their excuses will start, well, I don't have time to go to the gym. I like to eat what I want. If I die a few years earlier, so what? That's how a lot of people tend to look at the world. And he was totally out of shape, and he was not exercising much. I had a conversation with him back in that time and told him I felt very lonely and bored in our relationship. His answer was, and this is like typical of most people, whether it's a shitty job or a shitty friendship or relationship or just a mediocre way of living. It's like, listen to the answer. He told her, well, that's how marriages are. It can't be fun all the time. Just saying, fuck it. In other words, what that communicated to her was, I hear what you're saying, but I don't really care about you enough to want to do anything to change it. It's just the way it is. You need to fucking accept it. The whole purpose of all relationships is you go there to give. And what he just told her is that I'm not interested in giving anymore or doing anymore to make you happy or myself happy or make our marriage better. And typically a woman's going to hear that and think, well, he doesn't fucking care about me. He cared about me in the beginning, but now he's like, Short story, and this is the part I am not proud of myself. Uh-oh, here comes the rub. I ended up having an affair that ran for a little bit more than a year. You're fucking naughty. No bueno. I totally fell in love with this person. He was divorcing his wife as I was going through a tough time. After some drama, this affair also ran its course. I broke up with him, but it was almost a mutual breakup. I started to read your book twice until now, and I realized why I did the things that I did. She realized why she was attracted to that other guy and less attracted to her husband. But obviously not a fan of the fact that she cheated on her husband. If you're not happy in the relationship, the right thing to do, the honorable thing to do is to either work on trying to fix the relationship, and if the other person's just not interested, then you got to go your own separate ways. That's reality. It doesn't serve you or him or your kids to live a lie, because if you're running around screwing around behind your husband's back, well, guess what you're teaching your children? Now your children are growing up in a family where cheating and lying is just totally normal. Every time when I've done phone sessions with people and I talk to them and they start to tell me about their girlfriends or their boyfriends, dating and relationship history, and I hear about cheating, or they come from a family where there were lots of cheating, that's what they learn from their parents. They never learn to value loyalty, communication, and commitment. And so when their needs aren't being met, they, just like she did, she goes and she gets her needs met elsewhere. I realize all the mistakes my husband has made as well, and since then, I have been focusing and recovering my marriage. I was honest to my husband and told him about my feelings, not the affair itself, but how I really felt. And at that point, I was not expecting a good outcome, since I told him that I am not in love with him anymore, but at the same time, I did not want to hurt him. After all, my conscience told me I was the one who failed the most and not my husband. Well, obviously, you were the one that cheated, and maybe he's cheated in the past, or maybe he hasn't. We don't know. I have no words to express my regret for having an affair and for the negative effect that it had in my emotional being, as well as my marriage. Yeah, it's obviously not going to help your marriage if you're missing something from your relationship with your husband that you're getting that with somebody else. And so from that perspective, it's not like you were really making much of an effort to make your marriage work. It takes two people. You either work on your relationship, but obviously in your case, you worked on just creating a whole other relationship to fulfill what you were missing. It's hard to believe that the best chemistry and level of connection I experienced in my life was with the other man and not with my own husband. We tend to make decisions based upon emotions, and we use logic and reason to justify our decision. Whoever this other guy was, he obviously did the right things to make you feel attracted and turned on. Probably things you probably hadn't felt in quite a few years with your husband. With my husband, there is no attraction or sexual polarity. That is the story of the marriage. He is a good provider and a great father, but not a great lover. All this time in my marriage, I was the one who took control in the bed and in the romance. He likes to give me gifts, especially when he feels I am distant, as he says. Well, I would have to say you definitely should read the book, The 5 Love Languages, because if he's giving you gifts, more than likely his way of showing love and affection that he cares is by buying gifts. I mean, that's how it was in my family. There were no hugs, there were no I love yous. It's just we showed our affection through gifts. That's what we learned. And if he's a gift giver and you're more of a connection, or maybe you need somebody to give you positive reinforcement or affection or spending quality time together, if he's giving gifts, in his mind, he's showing you that he loves you. But if you're somebody that your love language is affection or spending time together, you're going to feel like your needs aren't being met and you're not loved in the way you need to. And that's where the importance of communication comes in, so you can tell him how you need to feel loved and validated. Gary Chapman was the one who wrote that book, The 5 Love Language. I think it's like 100 pages. It's one of the best, simplest books that everybody's watching this should definitely read. I don't want the control in bed. I want him to fuck me like the man and not like a teenager boy. Now that I don't initiate sex because I have no attraction to him, it is simply not happening. My husband, when he's in bed with me, acts like he needs my permission for everything. Give him a copy of my book. Say, I would really appreciate this, honey, if you read this book, because there's a lot of things in there that jumped out at me that we're experiencing in our marriage, and I'd really appreciate it if you would read it and do some of the things in here that I'd like you to do. It would mean a lot to me. It would be really, really important. It would really show me that you really do care, because I'm not happy right now, and I know you can do it. I'll support you in any way that I can, but in order for us to stay together and be happy long term, I need to have this, and I'm not getting it right now. I'm just asking you in a loving way. It would mean the world to me if you would join a gym with me, or go work out with me, or initiate sex more, or be more masculine and take on a more leadership type of role. If he's a good communicator and he's willing to listen without getting upset and getting butthurt over it, which unfortunately a lot of men and women are going to get that way, and that's where the importance of making a good choice in the beginning comes in. He is very insecure in the intimacy. He is expecting me to magically change and feel attraction for him again, as if I have a disease that it'll run its course, and then I will magically be cured and I will be good in bed like I used to, just like a good Latin lover. Sometimes I hope that will be the case, but I don't see the situation changing, as he really does nothing to become stronger in our relationship. Well, that's why you got to communicate. Remember, us guys are logically driven. If you're using hints and innuendo instead of just coming right out and being blunt and telling him in a logical step-by-step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it happens to be, this is what I need and this is what I'd like for you to do. Being mad and upset with him and giving him examples and hoping he figures it out, it's just going to sail right over his head. My question is, can a woman teach a man how to be one? Well, the whole purpose of all relationships is you go there to give. You're there to help each other grow and become more. But just like anybody that's got a drug or alcohol or addiction problem, you can't help somebody that's not ready, willing, able, and open to being helped. All you can do is gently lead, suggest, and ask in a loving way for exactly what you want from him without trying to give him a bunch of examples in hopes he's able to kind of figure it out and extrapolate what you're really asking. Just come right out and say what you want or what you would like for him to do in the future, or maybe something that he used to do he's no longer doing. And then it's up to him whether he's going to do it or not. And give him time to do that. And if he still doesn't do it, just say, well, we talked a month ago about this, and you did this, which is really great, and I appreciate it. But this, and this, you haven't made any effort in that, and that really just quite frankly, makes me feel like you don't care about me in the way I need you to care. And if we're going to stay together, I need this to be done. And if you're not willing to make the effort, that just tells me you're really not willing to make the effort to make our marriage great like it used to be. And if that's where you're at, that's okay, but I'm not going to stick around for that. I just can't do it long term. I'd rather us go our separate ways and find people that are more ideally suited. So she says, I think that will be embarrassing. I'd rather divorce him and let him figure it out himself. Well, trust me, going through a divorce is not pleasant for anybody. And it'd be much better if you communicate in a loving way, just like I've talked about, and ask him to do these things for you. And he's going to either be willing to do it or not. He's either going to be willing to read the book or he's not. And the reality is, if this stuff is really that important to you and you speak to him in a logical, loving way and he still won't do it, it's you either accept that he's this way and it's just like that's the standard that is going to be your marriage for the rest of your life, or you can say, you know what, those standards aren't good enough at this point in my life. I want more. And if you're unwilling to do it, that's okay. I still love you, so appreciate you. We got 2 beautiful children together, but I'm going to want to go find somebody else that I can really be truly happy with, because I'm not happy with the way things are. And you are, so probably better for you to go find a woman who's going to be have the same goals and values that you do have. My husband tends to project his attraction on me and thinks we have no problems except for I don't want to have sex with him anymore. Well, if he's not acting like a masculine man, you're basically acting like the man in the relationship, so there's definitely no sexual polarity there. But he's got to learn this stuff, so you got to give him the opportunity, you got to give him the wisdom, the knowledge, and see what he does with it. And then you can let the chips fall where they may. Going out and having an affair or screwing around on him, that's not doing anything to make your marriage better. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. It's not good enough. We have been living a sexless marriage for months already. I even told him to read your book, but he shows no interest. He ignores all my signs of disinterest. Well, that tells me that you're expecting him to figure it out. And it's like, how is he supposed to figure this out? He's obviously not psychic. So you got to communicate in a logical way that he can understand, but the reality is he still may not do it. I can pretend nothing is wrong and just get laid with him once in a while, and I know he will be happy, but I don't want to settle anymore for a mediocre sex and romantic relationship. I don't see myself in this marriage for a lifetime. Well, that's your truth, and those are some of the words that you need to say to him specifically. You got to spell it out. Make a fucking list if you have to and give it to him. These are the things that I want. This is what I need to be happy. And I'll understand if it's asking too much and you're just not interested in doing it. But if you're not interested in doing what I need to make me happy, then we need to talk about going our separate ways and doing it in a way that's good for you and good for me and good for the kids. That way I can find somebody that's better for me and you can find somebody who's more ideally suited for you as well. Thank you, Corey, for your help, and I apologize for the long letter, but if you have any advice in my situation, I truly appreciate it. Well, that's what I would do if I were you. You got to give the dude a chance, and you got to lay it all on the table, spell it out step by step what you want and what you need, and it's up to him whether he's going to make the effort or not. Give it 30 days after you've had the conversation. If it still doesn't change, have another talk in 30 days and say, if it doesn't change, I'm going to give it another 30 days, but I'm going to be out of here. I love you. I'm just telling you now. Because a lot of guys, when they hear that, they go, I don't think she's serious. And it's not until you've actually packed your shit and moved out and they're dating somebody else, that's when like, oh, we're banging away. What's that guy's name? And they find me, how to get an ex back. Hopefully he'll take corrective action, but if not, at least if you do all the things I talked about and he still's like, then it's up to you. You either accept that that's the way it's going to be, or just like you said, this shit ain't working for me. And it's up to you to pull the plug and go do what it takes to make yourself happy. Because obviously you got to think about your kids. You got to think about the example that you're setting and teaching to your kids about relationships. And so if you do go your separate ways and say your husband gets into a mediocre relationship with a mediocre person that's kind of more on his level, and you find a guy that's a little bit more high achieving like you are, you'll be happy, your ex-husband would be happy, and your kids can see a superior example in you and whoever you end up with in the future. And kids are pretty smart. They can tell who to better, or what standard to better aspire to. Definitely something to think about. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to go to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book whatever coaching option works for you. And I will talk to you soon.